All right, what's up, y'all? Oh, here we go. I'm going to undo my sleeve cuff buttons, okay? Today's the 26th of April, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, and I'm the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Holy cow, man. A clothing company that has 4 sides, and we're so much more than just clothing. In fact, we don't even have clothing available quite yet as of today's date. But I'll talk about each of the 4 sides. I'll talk about where clothing has to sit for the reasons that it does. And then, yeah, we'll get into talking about this good old topic on the human head, okay? Yeah, so In the Image Clothing Company, physically, here on one of our 4s, our main side, where it all started, we keyword allow the human body to work. It's just a mechanical machine placed onto a rock in space, okay? It will only do what it does. Every joint within the body has a neutral, and from there it can go in the other directions. That's not its resting state, okay? We have to let the body do what it will do. We can never train it to do anything. We place clothing onto us though, and potential damage, because we live on this planet, as I just said. It's just a big old place, man, and we're just what we are. There's a center line to the human being because there's gravity on Earth. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and our jaw. But our jaw naturally stabilizes the entire body, so it has a whole separate mechanical function even that plays into the rest of the body big time. And yeah, we just need to keep clothing centered, fitting correct, ideally made out of 100% natural materials, because the human body is, and that's how we allow the body to work, man. And that's what In the Image Clothing Company clothing will do. Check this out, something for me to play with while I speak here. Yeah, so check this out. Neutral wrist, brother, no joke, right? I'm serious about the body, and it only works one way. It's only one way the body could ever work. We have another 4th of us, In the Image Clothing Company podcast, where I get so blunt, bold, deep, real, raw. Yes, okay, we talk about the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things. We're all on the same earth. We are all human beings. Who placed us here? Why are we here? How do we navigate it? And yeah, we really discuss things deeply over there. Another 4th of In the Image Clothing Company is In the Image Clothing Company music. I show sizings and setups of guitars because sometimes they're very much too massive for the only way the human body could ever work. And we can't alter the hands because they're essentially the shoulders, as the feet are essentially the hips. The body only can ever work as a whole, activated in its entirety. It's all one, so none of it can go anywhere that the rest doesn't as well. And there you go. Music that I make and have made is placed there. Okay. In the Image Clothing Company dogs, another 4th of us. Yeah. As I've been saying since that newest 4th of our company has come to be, I have been so convicted to just like push In the Image Clothing Company dogs as far as how massive it's going to be. I personally, Evan Strong, will be breeding purebred standard poodles. And that'll be a huge part of what we do on In the Image Clothing Company dogs. And just me personally, that's just going to be such a huge part of my own life. But letting dogs stay natural is the slogan for that 4th of the company. There's unnatural materials in dog toys and any accessories, man-made things that just didn't even exist decades back from today's date. And dehydrated kibble is unnatural. Collars, leashes, harnesses can be imbalanced and unnatural, and the dog's just being altered similar to and pretty much the exact same way as human beings are, okay? So we also, under In the Image Clothing Company products, will have collars and leashes available for dogs with the same intent behind clothing for human beings, all right? Now, clothing for human beings can only sit in one location. The body is just what it is, dude. Pants have to be entirely above the hips, so there's no restriction to the functionality of the pelvis. Slightly higher in the front than the rear for the waistband angle of our pants, because that's the only way that our core muscles can stay, the only way they could ever work, constantly activated. That's how they always would be if nothing altered the human body. The tops that we wear, there's seams on top of our shoulders, and they need to sit evenly behind the peak of our shoulders, because our shoulders only ever work behind our head. Mechanically, that's just the only way they could ever do anything. And button-ups, like I'm wearing here over my t-shirt, naturally have a band of material that just sits behind the shoulders. When I say they naturally have a band, I mean, in designs, they have a band that naturally sits behind the shoulders. Right at the very edges is where those edge seams have to be, because that's where the shoulders actually function. It's just a ball and socket joint up there, okay? So, yeah. We talk about keeping things off the wrists, sleeve cuffs, keeping short sleeves short enough off the elbow joint, pant cuffs off the ankles, right? Shorts off the hinging of the knee. The body is a machine. That's all it is, physically. That's it. So, two things we have, calling them prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company, okay? So that there's no restriction from these things. They're conditional because there's not always ropes in our shoes that we call laces, but it's actually very important to have them so that we can actually allow what we place onto our feet to just cinch on there tightly, and the only way the feet are shaped. There's a lot of functionality in our feet and ankles. There's only a neutral that has to reside there, straight out from the pinky toe forward, that slight outward curvature through the whole lower leg down to the heel from the knee. Okay, In the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique, found wherever you find us, 5 words as a whole, In the Image Clothing Company. That's the only way you put ropes in your shoes and don't alter your feet. Okay, we tie our shoes evenly over toward the centered line of the human being that we established is and has to be there on an earth with gravity. That's both sides of the body, okay? Opposing the center line as the arches do in our feet that grip inward, okay? Now, tags, if they are within clothing, second prerequisite, they must be removed. Everywhere, anywhere, and all places that are possibly placed, included within the shoes. You don't remove tags and your body's being damaged. Period and done, okay? They're causing gaps, changing the body, or they're just not allowing musculature to activate, and compensation can't happen in something that can only and always would work as a whole if not otherwise altered, okay? So, this video is actually about the human head, okay? We talk about so much more than just clothing under In the Image Clothing Company, and the main side here, yeah, sitting, standing, walking, eating, hydration, breathing, sleeping. If I didn't already say that, I might have. All the things that we do, because the body is just the body, and it always has to do the only thing that it ever could. So we show how to do that, and we show the truth. Our videos, as I say, will never change. The information that I place into here, it will apply to human beings for literally ever, regardless of what clothing's made out of at any time period, because ideally it's the same thing the human body is, 100% natural. Otherwise there's damage just from that alone. Stretch within clothing goes the opposite direction of the only way that muscles can ever work. Muscles only contract. There's a video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company here, titled that, okay? Yikes. All right, so the human head. We as human beings are placed onto this earth by God, okay? We have 5 senses, and that's how we navigate what this place is. Sight, smell, touch, taste, and hearing, okay? 4 of those are in the human head, the physicality of everything above the base of the jaw, all right? From here up, You've got taste in the mouth, smell in the nose, sight in the eyes, hearing in the ears. And your sense of touch can also happen on the head, because if you touch like your ear, for example, you can feel it with the nerve endings in your ear. But 4 of the 5 senses only happen in the human head. So this is what I'm talking about when I say clothing is the only fix for human beings' physical problems. So we talk about things like how clothing affects the nose under In the Image Clothing Company. These are video titles, okay? How clothing affects the eyes, how blowing noses, although it's titled How Blowing the Nose Affects Body Mechanics, how clothing affects the ears, the jaw, in all the ways that we talk about it, okay? How clothing affects the jaw. And we're always discussing how the jaw naturally stabilizes the entire body. When we talk about things like how clothing affects the rib cage, that's another video under the main site here of In the Image Clothing Company. The rib cage gets affected by the mouth and the nose, the only inlets to allow oxygen into the lungs. And those are in the human skull. Speaking, chewing, drinking, eating, all of this only happens in the human head, as far as no other part of the human body. And all of these things are affected by clothing, and entirely. Your jaw will do whatever the rest of your body's doing if there's any imbalances within the rest of the body, because it has to stabilize. Because we breathe through the jaw, whether it's coming through the nose and then through the trachea here that goes between the lower jaw, or whether we breathe through the mouth, which isn't ideal, that goes through the trachea that goes through the lower jaw as well. Whether we are doing that, or speaking, or eating, or just keeping our head vertical atop our body, it's our jaw that's doing those things. So clothing anywhere on the body that has imbalances, it's going straight to the jaw, because our head's placed on top of us at the very peak, and gravity pulls us down. And so, yeah, right? The head has to be stabilized, and the jaw is what does it. Okay, the human head. We talk about clothing, and we talk about clothing, and we will have clothing available in the Image Clothing Company. There's 4 sides to us as a whole. Here's the thing. The human head doesn't really get placed clothing onto it other than hats, glasses, things into the ears, sometimes things over the ears. But those are very conditional, because it's not all that common compared to just about everybody wears a top and a bottom as far as a shirt and pant type thing, and shoes are so commonly worn, undergarments and socks, right? There you go. Clothing. Clothing is anything that clothes the human body. So even though things aren't really placed onto the head that often in comparison, right? You look around, like there's multiple soccer games going on right here. Not all that many people have things on their head. Some people do have the things that I mentioned. But regardless, every single one of them, their head is being affected by their tips of their toes and or the tips of their fingers, because of anything at the extremities, the things I just mentioned, toes and fingers, and then anywhere in between, since we breathe through the human head, the nose primarily, but then the mouth as well. If we speak through the human head, and that takes things down to the lungs, down to the diaphragms, clear down to the tips of our toes and the tips of our fingers though as well, just to stabilize the body while we speak. Some people can't even quote unquote talk and walk at the same time. It's kind of like a silly thing people say when they claim they're not coordinated. It's because when you're walking, I just spit. You have to stabilize your entire body with your jaw, but when you're speaking, your entire body is stabilizing to walk if you're doing those two things at the same time. So the human head, okay, it is huge. I talk about how the jaw and the base of the rear of the skull here, this gap between those two, right here where I'm pointing, the ear canal. All the ear canal is a hole to the eardrum, which is the thing that our body receives sound into so that we can hear. That one sense out of the 4 that are only done in the human head, no other part of the body. So I talk about the gap between the rear of the lower jaw and the base of the skull back here. And I also address the wind noise if and when, because we're raw, real in the Image Clothing Company, as if I were to just be sitting with you here speaking truth as I am, although you aren't like physically here. Okay, the gift of video. The human head. The ears are massive, and they get affected by things clear down to the tips of the toes and the tips of the fingers. If there's misalignments out here at the fingertips, the jaw moves, then the ear canal gap changes, as we talk about, right? Same with the feet. Any discrepancy in shoelaces is not what we show under In the Image Clothing Company, because it's no opinion of ours, but there's only one way the human feet are shaped. Wind noise. So, yes, heels on shoes affect the human head, okay? Everything, anything, and all things that we talk about, and we talk about everything within clothing, meaning clothing's the goal and focus. Well, the goal is natural, but the focus is clothing to allow that to be the case. All of it, any of it, and every bit of it that's a slight imbalance, any way that's not the only way the human body works, goes straight to the head, physically, the skull of the human being. So, it's so big because we can't walk the way that human beings are designed to without our eyes looking where we're going and being able to tell our feet where to step, okay? So the eyes affect clear down to the tips of the toes, but really, again, the feet can then affect clear up to the eyeballs, okay? That's one of our senses, the sense of sight. Breathing through the nose, as we discussed, it has to be centered. That's what that video is about when I talked about blowing the nose and how to keep that something that doesn't alter the nose left to right, because the nose is in the center of the human being, and it has to be on an earth with gravity and 2 sides opposing the center line. Otherwise, there's damage throughout the entire body. Now, when we speak, as I was starting to say earlier, it takes our diaphragms, which are the muscles that are down here in our abdomen, and actually they're in our neck as well. There's diaphragms in both locations. Those allow air to be pushed out of the body across the vocal cords in the throat here, in our neck, okay, and then out of our mouth. And what's forming the words is our lower jaw, the human head, okay? So if our jaw is imbalanced, every time we say a single word or do any type of percussion with our mouth, we could call beatboxing, because I do that, okay? Check out whatever you want, right? It's happening with the lower jaw. When I say whatever you want, I mean In the Image Clothing Company music, In the Image Clothing Company podcast. I do quite a bit of beatboxing on there as well. So, the human jaw, okay, is the human head, really, because the human head wouldn't be vertical if the jaw wasn't stabilizing it. The muscles in our jaw, they start down here at the lower jaw, and they come all the way up through the side of the head, clear up here into the skull, like above our ear, quite a ways. And you can see it. I don't know if you can see it for the sake of lighting and distance from the camera that I'm currently sitting, but on your own body, you can feel up here, like off to the side of your eyeballs, and then even higher, what we call the temple of our head, right? When you close your mouth together and open it, you can feel the musculature up here in the side of your skull moving. Yeah, that's because your jaw is stabilizing your head. That's not the only reason there's muscles there. Those muscles allow for chewing. So every time you eat, your human head, okay? We talk about that often. Like I say, we talk about eating and hydration and naturally doing those things. The only way the body ever could, because God designed it to do one thing. Everything within it only has its function, and it can't try to play the role of something else, otherwise it just doesn't work, okay? I use the analogy of a play. You're watching a play, and somebody doesn't show up for the role, and the understudy's understudy is also sick, right? So there's somebody not playing the part, the whole play doesn't work. That's how the human body is. It can't compensate. Everything is only there to do what it's there to do. Yeah, okay, the human body as a whole. A video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, here, okay? This fourth of us. Now, that's just how it is, dude. That's just how it is. And I can tell you that, right? So, the human head is huge, because that's why I say at the beginning of videos, sometimes I word it a little bit differently, but my name is Evan Strong. I'm the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. A clothing company, yes, but really, we address the human body in its natural function, allowing it to work, being just a mechanical machine placed on an earth with gravity, right? I say similar things to that in intros, and and that's why, because yes, we are a clothing company and we do a lot with clothing. We couldn't do what we do for the body without addressing clothing, but it's things like this, the human head. I haven't placed quote-unquote clothing onto my human head for months. Other than yesterday, I mowed the lawn and I wore noise-canceling ear protection so that the noise from the mower wasn't going into my ears excessively loud, because it's a man-made artificial motorized grass cutting thing. But just because I haven't placed clothing onto my head in many months doesn't mean that my head's free of alteration from clothing. Yeah, everything within the body, like I'm saying, is going to the head, physically, the human skull. So, yeah, it's, yeah. So there you go, okay? 4 of our 5 senses, the way that we physically navigate and understand what this earth that we're all placed onto even is, 4 of them are only in the human head. So, yes, okay, when we talk about clothing and what it's really doing to the body, it's also doing things to the head, even if it's not touching it at all, okay? And there's context on that, if and where. We've got 111 episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Oh, shoot. As of last night. And there's 180 something, high 180s number of videos here on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. They're all purposeful. Like, they're all for a reason. I know that it's not so common for people to have as much content as we do. And if they do, sometimes they're just kind of pressing and pushing and pumping things out. Everything we make is intentional, okay? Meaning, everything that we talk about and all the things that we say to be intentional about to allow the human body to work, they are going straight to the human skull, the physical human head, okay? The alterations, the damage, and the chronic patternings and scar tissue that gets built up along the jaw, the excessively large cartilage within the ear canals because the jaw's position has changed, cartilage within the nose, almost always only on the right side. With all these things, because of that video, at least because of the context within it, under the main site of In The Image Clothing Company, titled The Right-Handed World. We live in one. 85%, give or take, of the entirety of the Earth's population of human beings as of this time period are right-handed. So things that are made to be used are geared toward right-handed people. Clothing in itself is right-handed in the patterns and imbalances that come from the factory in designs that get shipped across the whole Earth. I'm looking at this shipping container right here as I said that in this parking lot. So everybody's dealing with the same things. Oversized clothing in itself will fall toward the dominant side, which is the right for, give or take, 85% of the Earth at this time period, okay? And that's just doing the same thing that everything is doing to people. Seriously, it's the right side of the body. The episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled Choose the Right, I went over many things, but one of the main focuses was the right side of the human being. It's basically the only side you have to address at all when it comes to ridding scar tissue and patternings because of what I have just discussed, okay? So, yeah, this is just how it is, brother. The human head, what I'm saying with the nose is it's the right side of it that gets scar tissue built up all around the eye here because we're always looking toward the side we're imbalanced to, farthest away from our own center line, where the strength of the human being actually is, closest to its spine, sternum, trachea, nose, and jaw. The center line that is there, no opinion to have, no belief to care about. I'm not religious either, as I say. Yikes. What's he saying? This feels like an episode of the podcast. Check out In The Image Clothing Company podcast because we have truth that we discuss. We just talk about things that are real, otherwise there's no point if I'm saying it, and I'm the founder of In The Image Clothing Company and all four sides. So stick around if you'd like to. Poodles to come, no joke. Standard purebred poodles. You could potentially, maybe, possibly, and I say it with like if you could maybe though end up with a puppy from our litters, because we will have puppies that will yeah. But depending on what part of the earth you're on and, when we have puppies available and when you're available to be receiving one, right? Check out In The Image Clothing Company dogs. If you'd like, 1/4 of our company. Yes, there's 3 others, and this is one of them. So there's 2 others besides the 2 that I just mentioned, and I mentioned them within the intro. We do stuff here, dude, that will never change. So, the human head, okay? I, in all seriousness, without being silly, want to express my gratitude for this little steak, okay? I found it sitting right where it was when I started the video and picked it up, and it's been great to hold throughout this video, because I'd normally be sitting like this, and that's even more imbalanced, quote unquote, meaning just not quite as balanced as this, right? That's crazy. Talk about a neutral wrist. In The Image Clothing Company, dude. So, yeah, stick around, seriously. I'm so excited for In The Image Clothing Company dogs. I've been looking around, dude, and just seeing some beautiful dogs out here. And we will give information, as I say, right, for all 4 sides of the company. Things that apply to every human being to ever live. Yeah, if you don't have a dog, okay. But if you have a dog, we're going to talk about things that will apply to dogs for literally ever. No joke, okay? And we already have. There's already videos placed on In The Image Clothing Company dogs as of today's date. I think there's 5 videos. And I'm not even going to say that because I know that there is that many, okay? So thank you, and stick around. We are so much more than what you might think. And a lot of people are thinking a lot of things about what this is. Yikes. Okay. So 26th of April 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of all 4 sides of In The Image Clothing Company. Just so you know who I am. It's not about me, but stick around. No joke. And yeah, your human skull, dude, is actually very, very imbalanced if you've been wearing clothing that is, okay? because of the reasons I've discussed within this. So there's a lot of context though that we give in ways that we do about eating and how to, right? Ideally ambidextrously eating with both hands, because the mouth in itself can be imbalanced from things that we're doing, eating and drinking wise, right? And yes, paying attention to the ears and the gap in that cartilage material. It's almost in every single human being's case on the entirety of the earth, greater of a gap in the right ear than the left, okay? Because of all the things imbalanced stemming from the feet up to the tip of the head and the tips of the fingers. The dreaded collar seam under In The Image Clothing Company, that alone will just imbalance your entire skull, meaning all the functions within it. Scar tissue, the skin itself will be stretched on one side and shortened on the other. There's only a centered line, and there has to be, okay? Yeah, we just talk about things as they are, stuff that will never change. Thank you. Oh! So I'm gonna say some more words then, because it didn't stop yet. Yeah, no, there's so much that's going to the head, okay? Physically, the human skull, not like your head, like your intellect, but your physical skull, it's massive, dude. Your eyes, right? I talk about between the eyes here. We need to be able to look as evenly left as we can right, okay? Because there's two sides to the body, as we've been establishing and have established, and I've been furthering the discussion of, even after having the video not stop when I intended on it, doing it out of my own doings, but I was being a little bit disobedient to God because there's more to say. Okay. We need the head to be unaltered, okay? If there's things that are altered within your physical head, the physical skull of the human being and all that goes into that, and the jaw, the nose, the eyes, the ears, the skin on the scalp, okay, all the things, what can happen is if you have some type of injury to your head, if you have dental work that has been imbalanced, okay, or if you've had dental work done while your body was within imbalances, okay, when your jaw is stabilizing your entire body, but your body's already in a position that's hard to stabilize because shoelaces, drawstrings, okay, how drawstrings affect body mechanics under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. Buttons on pants, zippers, how zippers affect body mechanics under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company. Okay, all the things, anything, everything, tying shoes unevenly is just massive. In The Image Clothing Company's official shoelace technique under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company, okay? Shoes that are just laced different and just not allowing the arches to evenly be unaltered, okay? All things, anything, and everything will go to the skull of the human being for the reasons that I've discussed here. But what I was saying though about having an injury potentially to the head, then if scar tissue gets built up in the human skull, and or something that just causes an imbalance even in the skin, or visual imbalances, one of your eyes doesn't quite see as clearly as the other, so you're squinting like this, then the rest of your body is altered, okay, down to the tip of your toes, to the tip of your fingers, because you're imbalancing the musculature around the side of your face where there's a center line, and your whole body then gets altered. As I've been saying, from the toes and the fingertips up to the head, it goes the opposite direction. The body is only one. It all can only ever work as a whole, activated in its entirety, as if nothing had ever been placed on it to alter it. And there you go. That's the only way every single human being to ever live's body will ever work. No opinion of mine, right? There's an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled No Opinion I Could Have. It's the truth, the one and only, God himself, the one who our bodies are designed in the image of, Jesus the Christ. So, thank you. Talk about being disobedient. I had more to say. The point with that is, in every video that I make, and that's a little bold and maybe not quite exactly correct, but just about, we'll say, every single video that I make for In The Image Clothing Company at this time and then going forward, I could add more understandings and context to the video because I do know a lot about this. So don't care about me, but just know that we do speak truths, things that will never change. Try what we talk about. Don't believe it, okay? I say it so often, and I have. Do not believe me, Evan Strong, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, because truth is truth. It's apart from all of us. It manifests itself to you. If you try what we talk about, the actual undisputed universal truths that we speak on under In the Image Clothing Company, they will just work for you, because your body's just an operable thing, dude. Hinges, levers, rotations, breath, gravity, center line, earth, right? We're all the same thing, dude. And that's the same with dogs as well, okay? There's different sizes of dogs, but as long as it's a dog, it just has to operate the only way that a dog would operate, placed onto an earth, which is what has happened to it. Okay? In the Image Clothing Company, truth, truth, and truth. That doesn't mean that I'm always correct about what I'm saying, but, right, sinful by nature. I'm imperfect in my deliveries of things, but yeah, that's why I say don't believe me, but give it a try. Seriously. It'll work. And it's the only thing, too. The only thing that ever could. Workouts, diets, cardio, no, never could. The human body only could ever do what it does, and it's quote-unquote designed to work, like the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast states, okay? No reason the body wouldn't work for every human to ever live unless there was a reason that it wouldn't. And really, unless there was a reason that it couldn't. And that could be anything, ever. But it is clothing, period and done. Okay? I mean, it's the only thing placed onto us physically. Yeah. So, check it out, and check it out again. Shout out to Zero Shoes, no affiliation as of today's date or up until, but XERO, the brand, I love them. These are the Zero Denver leathers. This is In the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique, aka the only way the human feet are shaped for every human being to ever live. Otherwise, you are altering your entire body to the tip of your head and the tips of your fingers, from a rope placed across the top of the human's foot. And both of them, because there's two sides to the center line of a human being. Okay, I mean, it's as real as it gets. So, the human head. Heels off shoes, right? Heels off shoes, otherwise your jaw will just be sticking forward, curving your cervical spine, blah, blah, blah. All the things we talk about, okay? I'm not trying to cut it short. I just mean, it's like I say, I could add all the context that I could add to every video that I make under In the Image Clothing Company, but right? I mean, but yeah, that's the case. So, yes, the head, because people work out and they're focusing on their musculature, which, first of all the musculature does is move the skeletal system. There's no point to have muscles if you don't have a skeletal system, but you can have a skeletal system, and in fact you have to, as a prerequisite to having muscles, be able to even exist or do anything that could matter, right? So don't work out, and don't let me tell you what to do, but I'm telling you the truth. The body's about a position, as we talk about. That's In the Image Clothing Company. That's our whole point. Okay? Neutral joint. Every joint has a neutral. Okay? There you go. So, the body, the human body, that's our focus. The human body, that's where we founded this company, on the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. Yeah, the human head is a really big thing, dude. Your training patternings, if you're chewing imbalanced, your training patternings, if you're speaking imbalanced, I stuttered through it, right? How funny is that? Your training patternings, if you're breathing imbalanced, Your training patternings if you're tilting your head to try to hear something because your hearing is imbalanced. Your training patternings, as I said earlier, if your eyes, your visual system is imbalanced, left to right, okay? And that jaw is so huge. I say it so often. I mention it, at least lately, in just about every video, because I talk about the center line of the human being, and I say the things that are in the center that I've mentioned a couple times within this video. And when I talk about the jaw, I say which naturally stabilizes the entire body, because dental work is a really, really huge one. I've personally, not to make it something it isn't, but suffered so much because of dental work. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled The Root Canal Story, and I discussed that in my own personal experience. So yes, okay, the body as a whole is the only way it could ever work. And there's really not much of a human body without its head. The brain's up there, and then what we've been talking about of 4 of the 5 senses are only within our physical head. You can't eat without it coming in through your head. You can't breathe without it coming in through your head. Okay, the human head, even if there's no clothing placed ever onto it, you've never placed a hat on your head or anything on your ears or your eyes or whatever you could call clothing onto the head of a human being, let's say, and that would be extremely rare, but maybe it's happened, okay? I don't know. Probably, actually, right? I don't know. It doesn't matter. The point being, your head, the physical skull of the human being, would still be altered if there was imbalances anywhere within clothing, from, like I started this with saying, the base of the lower jaw down to the tips of the fingers and the tips of the toes, okay, of every human being to ever live. We need to be very intentional. The trachea, right? How clothing affects the trachea. A video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. Yeah, the right side of our trachea can get so much scar tissue built up in it. A big thing is that dreaded collar seam, and then the collars are imbalanced. A video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. Keeping collars centered, okay? Yes, yes, and yes, okay? If the shoulder seams don't sit the only location the shoulders will ever work, behind our head, a video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. Shoulders naturally sit behind the body. If that's not the case, then the jaw stabilizing the shoulders, which muscles go from the upper ribs, collarbone area, shoulders up into the jaw and skull, right? Yikes. Then your head of the human being is altered physically because shoulder seams, right? Pant waistlines sitting incorrect, keeping pants above the hips. A video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company. Yes. If your pants are altering your pelvis, your jaw will then not be able to stabilize your body the only way that it ever could, because your body is altered. So your jaw is trying to compensate, and it cannot. Your body only will ever work the way that God designed it to. And we understand how that is for every human being to ever live here under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, where we deeply discuss the anatomy of the human body. It's as real as it gets, as I say, okay? I'm just some kid from the state of Utah, the United States of America. I don't even know how I know all this. But I know who told me. Yeah, God. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the place to be. So let me just tell you how I'm not religious, and then talk about a place that's perceived as a religion. It's the truth of all things, dude. Don't believe me on nothing, but we give truth here that applies to everybody, so we must be doing something that's actually correct. Otherwise, how could that be the case, right? For those skeptics out there, yikes. I love that word, brother. All right. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you again. Yeah, and I didn't even know I was going to make this video until maybe an hour ago, give or take. But the head is huge. I started to think about it. I was like, I mean, yeah, we've talked about it, and I've talked about every one of these things that I've said within this video in areas under In the Image Clothing Company content up until today's date, the 26th of April 2025. But I was realizing how it's the head that in a lot of ways takes the beating. I mean, all the things that are going to change the jaw's only working position, right? The wrist. There's a video under In the Image Clothing Company's main side here titled The Right Wrist, okay? The neutral wrist is another video we made. I did that. And all the ones that I've mentioned were personally made by me, is what I'm saying, just so I'm giving you context on stuff that I've personally said. So, you got a problem with it, cool, but we speak on things as they are. The point with the wrist is if the wrist is altered, the jaw will be stabilizing out of a position where it could never actually be centered. And so the body's damaged at the head of the human being, the physical skull. Right, I talk about all the scar tissue along the right shin bone, along the pelvis crest, the right crest of the pelvis. Yes, a video under the main side of In the Image Clothing Company here, okay? The pelvis here gets so affected because of all the things that we do as human beings to place clothing onto our bodies in a position that's not centered when Earth pulls us down with gravity. And there has to be a center line. For all the reasons that I've discussed within here, if that's not enough, then boy, I don't know what you're looking for to help you. Because we will, if you do what we talk about here. It's not about us. It's about the truth. It's apart from all of us, but applies to everyone. That's amazing to say, because that's the case. So there you go. All right, the human head, put some focus on it, brother. Yes, well, okay. I'm gonna deepen this. The hand. The hands naturally have what I call hand arches. Okay, like within our feet, our hands are round. Neutral wrist is outside of that forearm, straight out that pinky finger, as it is the pinky toe. Okay, for the feet. If we don't have our rounded open palms, right, as I talk about with guitar setups, flat fretboard guitars have been a long time here. They've been around for a long time. The hands are rounded and always have been, before guitars were ever even a thought in a human being's intellect inside their physical skull. That's what this video is about, okay? So rounding has to be had in everything that we do with our hands, because if not, we're most commonly using one hand over the other because we're dominant in the right side for 85%, give or take, of the population of every human being on the earth at this time period. So placed in a man-made world that's been placed onto our earth, there's so many flat things and our hands are rounded. Holy visual, talk about it, right? Round hand, natural. Neutral wrist, working body, rotations, healthy human being. The only way that it could ever work, because that's how God designed it. Now we go to something flat, man-made, and the body's damaged. That was kind of, that wasn't exaggerated, it shocked me. Yes, it's that real. The hands are rounded, okay? So believe me. No, don't believe it, but it's the truth. So the point is, using things flat with our hands, again, it goes straight to the jaw. You can probably hear it in my voice when I do that, and collapse the hand arch. It closes off the trachea. There's only one way the human body could ever work for every human to ever live, and it's the exact same. And maybe you've got an amputation or deformity, but hey, guess what? You've got the rest of your body, and you're still on the same earth with gravity pulling you straight down, and you have to continue to breathe, otherwise you die. In the Image Clothing Company, we speak truth. Don't believe us, but you want your life to change? Check us out. This is as real as it gets, brother. Yeah. I don't know if you heard that. If not, that's fine, but my jaw did pop. There was a release in my jaw. In the Image Clothing Company podcast, you've been able to see that happen quite a few times. Those episodes are numbered and documented in both visual plus audio and audio only as two forms of viewing it, okay? Except viewing it is only in the one form if we're talking about visually. So, thank you. I love this. I'm just hanging out, telling people stuff that will change their lives, even if they're here on this earth after I have gone from it. There's There's only one truth, and it's God himself, Jesus the Christ, the designer of our bodies. He's perfect, and we're not. Yeah. Okay, thank you. In the Image Clothing Company dogs, check it out. I just keep getting prompted to say it, so... Purebred standard poodles, brother. Stick around, bro. We got noise coming, so I'm going. Thank you.